All right, welcome again. And as it's our usual practice, I hope you're excited, ready to learn. If this is your first time joining us, you're welcome. Um, Suffice to say that you've missed quite a bit. So I would strongly encourage you to go and catch up on the videos on Adara YouTube, Adara Foundation's YouTube page. You'll see some of the learning sessions captured there so that you can bring yourself up to speed. But today we would continue from where we stopped last week. And I want to start with a quick refresher on the the business numbers that we learned. We spoke quite a bit about, sorry, excuse me, please. We spoke quite a bit about break-even analysis, how to compute break-even. We defined what break-even was, what it meant, right? It shows is that point in that a business operates at where it's neither making profit nor loss. And the reason why it's good to compute break even, in fact, if you're positioning for funding and the likes, one of the things that they would sometimes investors would ask is what's your break even point? Now, for someone who's producing goods, it's the number of units that you would produce such that you are no longer making a loss, but you are beginning to get into profitability. Um, Same thing too if you're making an investment decision, right? You want to know at what point will this investment yield? Because the expectation is in a number of businesses when you first start out, because of the perhaps the cost of investing in starting out those businesses, getting equipment, purchasing some assets, right? For some businesses, they even start off with liabilities, right? That is, they get funding, okay? They get a loan, let me put it that way. They get a loan, and so they already have liabilities from the start. And then the money they used to buy their raw materials, pay salaries, overheads, as we call them, and put rent a space and the likes. By the time you put all of those things together, one of the things I very significantly last week was the need for any business owner, either budding or aspiring, to always be intentional about documenting, keeping records, keeping invoices, keeping receipts. Thank God we operate in a digital age, so you don't have to have physical papers. You can always store this in some cloud storage, right? But just always make sure you have source documents, because when you are positioning to get funding, right, or even positioning to get a partnership and all, people want to see that you keep accurate records of your business. You're able to track the flow of funds in your business. I said something also in the last five class or four classes. The money flows in the direction of value, and we spent the beginning part of this entrepreneurship program just understanding and unpacking what value means, right? From value proposition, and we'll be speaking to pricing as I promised last week. We'll go into pricing, but I want us to participate in this refresher exercise because for me it's important that learning happens when people understand the concepts that have been taught and can practically apply them. Okay, so if you weren't with us last week, you might struggle, but I will still encourage you to try your hands at this exercise I have up on screen. Mr. James operates a fast food business. To start up the business, he had to spend 1.5 million naira to buy necessary equipment. And so, if you're familiar with the fast food industry, I'm sure you can imagine what types of equipment. Again, these are not actual figures, so please don't fixate on those. Just use the numbers to practice the concept. He spends 500,000 naira on rent. He charges a flat rate of 1,000 naira for a pastry and 3,000 naira for a pack of food. To produce these items, that is to produce the pastries and the food packs, he has to spend 1,500 naira for raw materials. So your pepper, your protein and things like that, even your disposable packs, and then he has to spend 500 naira as production cost monthly. Under your production cost, then you cover for things like your labor, so the women who will do the cooking and the baking and the whatever. Yeah. Now the first assignment is to calculate his break-even point in units. And then the second task is to calculate his profit. If he sells 30 pastries and 50 packs of food in 1 month, so you're computing just the profit for 1 month. Okay. I want to see if we are familiar and we still remember the formulas and we've been able to apply them in our own businesses, as it were. So please go ahead. I would open up my chat box so I can start to see the answers coming. Number one, what is his break-even point in units? And then number two, how many, calculate the profits. Hello, Clement. It's good to have you. Welcome. SS, welcome. SS, I hope you're feeling stronger. Sorry, I'm mixing you up with Joy Sampson. I know one of you was feeling a bit ill last class. I hope you are better. I think it was Joy Sampson. I hope you're stronger now. Okay. Welcome, Elizabeth. Ifoma, counting on you again today to deliver. So let's see, everyone, calculate the break-even point for Mr. James fast food business and also the profit if he sells. Now, again, not to confuse you, just think when I say profits, think about the definition that we give, the formula we give at 2 classes back. Very simple. Because I know that the term profit, especially if there's an accountant on the call here, you might be trying to think too far. Just take your costs and take your revenue. That's all. So you can, if it makes you feel comfortable, call it net revenue. What is the net revenue? Okay. Can I have answers? I only have about 3 minutes for this task. So actually two. By 4:55, I expect I would have our answers up. I'll read it again so that you can pay attention if it helps, so that you can extract the pointers you need there. So when we spoke about break even, who recalls the formula that we put up for computing our break even? Let me help you. There are three basic cost categories. Well, two basic cost categories and one revenue category you need to pay attention to when you're computing the break even. Okay, your fixed costs. Remember what we described as fixed costs. These are costs that don't change regardless of your factors of production, right? Now, your fixed cost is also known as your indirect costs, right? It does not directly impact on the productions, the services being rendered in terms of the quantity or the factors of production there. So think about your variable costs as well. These are your direct costs. These are the ones that impact. So your variable costs would impact on your total costs based off of the quantity of items you are producing. Okay, so think about that. Those are the two major costs you need when you are calculating break even. And then your revenue, as simple as that. So it's revenue costs, revenue per unit. All right. And we've said here that he has to spend, he charges a flat rate of 1,000 naira for a pastry and 3,000 naira for a pack of food. Okay, so those are his products. So what is his break even? If I explain any further, I'm going to be doing I'm going to be solving the question for you if I go further into any explanation. All right, who can? I don't see any answer up. Oh, hail, God, I beg. For me, this is if all my people here, Clement, SS, Michael, Ifoma. I've not seen Abdulhafiz in a bit. I hope he's okay. He hasn't joined us in this is the second class that I'm not seeing him. Elizabeth, all of you guys were here last week. So that means we did not understand this concept. Oh, God. Someone needs to help me out here so that I know that learning has happened. All right, let's do this very quickly. I want you to drop in the chat room. I don't know. Just put no answer. Any. If I see any, if everybody puts any, that means that you all don't know the answer to the first point. Okay, Elizabeth is working on it. Okay, so I'll give you a bit of time. Who else? Is Clement still here? Looks like he's dropped off. Michael, any or working on it? So if you are working on it, put W. If it is no answer, put any, so that I know if I'm still waiting for anybody, if there's any hope. Otherwise, Ifoma waiting to, okay, Joy is working on it. SS, okay. I see an answer from SS. All right. Ifoma says break even is 1,000. Okay. SS, is this profit or break even? Profit, okay. You've gone ahead to calculate the profit. You want to look at those numbers again properly. Look at it again. But thank you for making the attempt. Yeah. Ifoma, do you want to explain to us how you arrived at your break even? Joy, are you done? Are you done? Michael, you're quiet too. Let's see. I hope Clement is able to join back in because he was very particular about what we're going to discuss today. So I hope that he won't miss it. Ifeoma, are you able to unmute and explain to us how you arrived at your break-even answer?
Okay. Good evening, ma. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is how I got 1,000. The formula for finding break even is fixed cost divided by revenue per unit minus variable costs per unit. So what I did first was
Okay.
calculate my revenue per unit, which is 4,000. That's what the man makes from each customer he serves. How I got 4,000 naira was I added 1,000 naira is flat rate for a pastry meal, and then 3,000 naira for a whole pack of food. So that's how I got the revenue per unit as 4,000 naira. So for
Okay.
the variable costs, which is direct costs, is 2,000 naira. That is 1,500 plus 500 naira. That's the cost that is variable. So that's how I got
Okay.
2,000 naira for that. So when I did the subtraction, 4,000 minus 2,000, that's 2,000 naira. So that means we've gotten that one. So to get the fixed cost, because we're supposed to divide it by the fixed cost. So the fixed cost is 2 million naira. That's 1.5 million from what he spent to buy the necessary equipment, and then 500,000 for his rent. So when I added that up, that gave me 2 million naira. So 2 million naira divided by the 2,000 naira I got from subtracting those two. That was how I got 1,000.
Thank you very much for that response, Ifoma. Okay, so I see
Okay.
another answer. Elizabeth has solved it as well. Sorry. I also see Joy has solved hers. Joy, do you want to explain how you arrived at break even at 2,000? Joy, are you there? How did you arrive at break even at 2,000? Let's hear your formula before I speak to the final answer. Maybe everybody is wrong, or some people are right, or one person is right.
Okay,
Go
good
ahead.
evening, ma. Okay,
Hi,
the
Joy. Go ahead.
break even is calculated by fixed cost divided by fixed cost divided by revenue. So the fixed cost there is 2 million naira. That's the total fixed cost. And then the selling price per unit, we have pastry is 1,000. Then the pack of food each is 3,000 naira. Then the raw materials we have 1,500. So it costs 2,000 naira to produce the food, the pastries and the food. So how I got, can you understand? Do you understand me?
Yes, I'm with you.
So how were we able to get this? So how were we
Yeah,
able to get this? So
go
we had
ahead. So how did you have that 2,000? Yeah.
the fixed cost was divided by the revenue per unit. The fixed cost.
So what fixed cost? What's your fixed cost?
The fixed cost is 2 million.
Okay.
The fixed cost,
So you divided it by revenue per unit of what? What's your revenue per unit? 4,000.
yes.
Yeah, if you divide 2 million by 4,000, you won't even get 2,000
No, we divided it by the selling. We divided it by the variable cost. That is
by
2,000.
variable cost. So you
Yes,
divided
the
2
variable
million by
cost.
2,000
Yes.
variable costs. Okay. And so if you divide 2 million by 2,000, you won't even get 2,000. You want to check that your computation again? All right.
Let me
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Look at the computation again. But so everyone who has the answer 1,000 is correct. That would be Ifoma. Thank you for explaining to us. You were the first person to put that response there, and you were able to articulate how you solved this. So you're correct. Everyone who has and Joy, you're also correct all the way up to the computation itself, calculating the break even. So revenue cost per unit is 4,000, which is correct. Everybody got that right. Your variable cost is correct at 2,000. However, Joy, where you missed it was you are supposed to subtract your variable cost from your revenue and use that to divide your fixed cost of 2 million. So you got your fixed cost right. But what you said about using variable cost because it happens to be 2,000, it's just coincidental. It could have been 1,500, right? So if you had used only your variable cost to divide your fixed cost, you would have gotten the answer right. However, your workings would have been wrong because you're supposed to subtract the 2,000 from the revenue cost per unit, which is 4,000. Okay, so well done, everyone. Thank you for taking a stab at this, and I just have up on my screen here the computation. Okay, so let's go to the profits. I think JSS already sent us the profit that I asked you to check again. Has anybody computed profits now? Elizabeth, okay. You've done your revenue and then okay. Oh, you're just explaining. No, you're trying to compute your profits. Where's your profit? Elizabeth, you haven't finished. You've computed revenue, good. But where's your profits? So that we make progress, guys. If you're still working at it, put W so I know. If you're not able to, just put NA. So I know if I'm still expecting any response from the house. Profits, profits, profit, profits. Let me go back to the question. Calculate Mr. James' profit if he sells 30 pastries and 50 packs of food in 1 month. Who knows what the profit formula is that we shared last 2 classes and also last week? If you can put it up on screen, that would be great. How do we calculate profit in any business? A simple calculation. or net revenue, as it is called, or net sales, as it is called in some places. Net sales, net revenue. Yeah, anybody? Okay, profit is equals revenue minus total cost. Fantastic, Elizabeth. Well done. So your profit, your revenue is 180,000. I knew that this was going to happen, which is why SS also had a similar response. Okay, let's go to it. Now, let me tell you why you can't. And this was a trick question because I suspected that people will do this. Sorry, excuse me. I feel I'm having a bit of allergy. So I keep feeling like I need to sneeze, but it's not coming out. So pardon me, just in case the sneeze escapes before I'm able to catch it. Fortunately, the class is virtual, so you don't have to fear. All right. So remember, I kept saying that very simple definition. Don't try and think about it too much, or simple solution. Because I said calculate for 1 month, and that was the thing there, for 1 month, right? What I observed a number of us have done is to take the fixed costs. Now, you know that the fixed cost does not change regardless of the quantity that you produce monthly or weekly. Your rent is your rent. Your rent is not going to change because you made money in the month, or you sold or you did not sell. The equipment you have invested in buying, all the cookers, the gas, the everything, is going to still remain there. You have already bought it at the start of the business. Now, this question assumes that, let me see, what does Ifoma have? Ifoma, you have 2 numbers here. I'm not sure which it is, but anyway, let me just talk through it. So, what are the different lines of revenue that this business has? The sales stream, right? One is pastries. That's a line of income or line of revenue. The second product, that the business has is packs of food. Now, if you sold 30 pastries, you see it's 30,000. Everybody who's got 180,000 naira for revenue is correct. So what you did, my expectation is that what you did was you took the quantity produced, which is 30 pastries and 50 packs of food. You multiplied by the selling price for each, which is 1,000 for pastry and 3,000 for a pack of food. That's how you arrived at 180,000. Okay. Now, for costs, if you notice that the only type of cost you see up on screen are the variable costs. We did not touch the fixed cost because you cannot carry the fixed cost. You cannot carry the sum that you used in purchasing assets when you started the business and recognize it, as we say in accounting, recognize it in 1 month. No, you can't do that. So this is actually your net revenue position, which is the cost, my operating costs, right? Which are my variable costs that I'm using in producing these items to be able to sell, is what I am accounting for, or what I am recording month on month. One is my raw materials. So raw materials is the cost, that the amount of money I used to buy tomatoes, buy rice, buy meat to be able to sell and get, these 50 packs of food. That's what I've calculated here. Now, how did I arrive at that? Remember that because it is direct cost or variable cost, variable means it will vary based on the quantity you produce, right? So I simply took my 1,500 naira cost of raw material to produce one item, right? To produce one product. I took it and I multiplied by the total number of products that I produced, which is 80. And that's how I arrived at this 120,000 here. Same thing with my production costs. Cost of paying the labor, paying the person that will clean the cow, paying the person who will cook the food, etc, etc, and things like that. Little things here and there. 500 naira per unit multiplied by 80 units or 80 packs, 80 products, right? Being pastries and packs of food. is how I arrived at 40,000. So my total cost, my total variable cost here now is 160,000 naira. Okay. Now, my net revenue position, loosely called my profit for the sake of this class, is I back out this 160,000 from the 180,000 naira that came in as inflow or income to me. And I have a net position of 20,000 naira. Now, in standard accounting practice, right, this what we have shown here is just very layman, easy to process financials, right? There is something called your earnings before interest, before tax, before depreciation and before amortization. Because this is not an accounting class or a finance class, we won't get that far. But just know that there are other elements in here that we should still whittle down to be able to get your actual profit. Now, if your small business has not started paying taxes, then you don't have a problem with tax, right? If your business, right, has assets. Now, this Mr. James business has assets. When we go back to the question, we'll see that when he was going to start his business, he had to buy equipment totaling 1.5 million. Okay. Now, in accounting, again, I don't want you to worry your head too much about this, because what you need to know to be able to make decisions really is what came in the month, what went out in the month, what is my net position. Okay. When your accountant is then putting together your books and all that, that is when they do a further deep dive of your numbers so that it makes more sense. But with where you are, what we've calculated so far, knowing that this business, first of all, he needs to produce 2,000 units to be able to break even. What this means is currently, Mr. James' business is going to be in red. He's operating in loss. Assuming that he just started the business and he has not produced up to 2,000 units. If he has not sold up to 2,000 units, it means that based on the fixed cost, the assets, the investments he has made in the business of getting a place that was going to cost him 500,000 and of buying equipment that was going to cost him 1.5 million, it simply means that for him to start to see profits in this business, he must get to the point where he is selling 2,000 units, as in he has sold 2,000 units and he has crossed that band. Because at 2,000 units, he would have covered all his costs, especially the fixed costs. That is, he has sold enough to get the cost that he has invested in buying this equipment, getting it back. Okay? And so he will be able to sustain the business going forward. Now, from the profit side of things, it simply means that Mr. James if he continues to sell just 80 products every month, he will, and without changing the price, his selling price, and without the cost of all, how they say it, all things being equal. Yeah. All things being equal means the cost of the raw materials. It's not that he went to the market today and he bought a basket of tomatoes at 50,000. And then he went to the market next week and basket of tomatoes has doubled in price. And he doesn't come and he changes his price. That one will impact on his net revenue position. But all things being equal, that is, he continues to sell 80 packs of food every month and the raw materials and production costs remain at that amount, he will be making 20,000 naira every month. Now, what we do with the fixed cost is to say, and this is what maybe somebody who's very, very good with numbers, is something you can do, is to then say the second level is the cost of equipment. There's a concept in accounting called depreciation, right? That is ascertaining that this asset, in the case of Mr. James, now fast food business, let's assume his gas cooker that he uses, the industrial cooker. Let us assume that it has a useful life of 4 years. Useful life being we would be able to use anything after 4 years. The asset is not deemed, is no longer seen as in good condition. Let me put it that way, for want of a way to describe it. And so we say, if this asset is going to exist in this business for 4 years, or let's even say 5 years, because it's a gas cooker, at 5% depreciation rate, that is, if I apply this, I can determine how much every year, that I will be reducing the value of the asset by in my books. So if the asset is 1.5 million and we're depreciating over 5 years, so that's like 30,000 or 300,000 naira every year. So it means that the next year, when my accountant is doing my financial statements, I will not be carrying that asset at 1.5 million because I have used it for 1 year. It means I have used the value of 300,000 naira from that asset. The asset is no longer at 300,000. And think about it. It has become I was going to say it has become tokumbo, but not necessarily tokumbo. It has become second hand. If I want to sell it, I'm not going to be able to sell it at 1.5 million, right? So that asset, I'm now going to record it in year 2 of my business in my books as 1.2 million because I have backed out 300,000 from it. Do you understand? Now, you take it again, it goes on that way year on year for 5 years, right? So if I then take that 300,000, the depreciable amount in my current year, if I take it and I divide it by 12, that's less than 30,000. That's like 20-something thousand naira. That 20-something thousand naira, I'm supposed to now apply it under my fixed cost. So what I see a number of you did was you carried that 1.5 million as is. No, what you do is you annualize that figure, right? And then you get the monthly value of your annual depreciable amount. That is what you would then apply. Now, it sounds very complex, which is why I'm saying let's stick with this one. How much came in the course of the month? How much went out? I mean, I'm happy to discuss this. EBITDA, no, EBI. See, Elizabeth, I see your question. EBI, TDA. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Okay. So I hope this is clear to everyone. On the other hand, for your rent too, is the same treatment. You pay your rent in 1 year, simply just factor the cost per month. So if you want to see really and truly, yes, I know that I have already bulk paid these things at the start of my business. But in this current year, my rent is 500,000. What is the cost to me every month? If you take that and then you apply it here, you will see that this buttresses what I was saying earlier under break even, that Mr. James in the first few years, except he starts to sell significantly more, right? In fact, for him to, from the start of his business, for him to get into profit, he needs to sell close to what we've described in the break-even analysis. Okay? So I hope that helps. Let's move on to our topic today. If you have any questions, thank you, Elizabeth. I can see you say very clear. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and put in the chat room, and I will take your questions. Let's move to pricing quickly. Now, pricing is a term used to describe the decision-making process that each business owner must embark on, whether they are a product-based entity or a service-based entity. Pricing communicates how much your brand means to you, right? It communicates the value you place on the products or the service that you're rendering, and also the value that you place on the customers, right? And your potential consumers. It is one of the first things that a consumer considers when deciding whether or not to acquire your good or service. So think about it. If your friend walks into your room or your house with a bag, let's use a handbag for the ladies, a lovely red handbag, tomato red color, and you really like it, I am very sure that the first 3 questions you will ask about the bag, the price of the bag will be there. How much did you buy it? If that's not your first question, it will most likely be your second question. If it is not your second question for whatever reason, it will be your third question. So it will be, I really like your bag. How much did you buy it? Where did you buy it from? Right? Hardly would you be asking things like, how much luggage can this your bag carry? How much stuff can your bag carry? How many compartments does the bag have? Do you understand? Those are not the questions that you would ask in the immediate. So pricing is critical to any business. Exactly. Price is the first thing. Most times, once you like something, the first thing you're thinking about is how much is this. In fact, you see people who sell stuff on Instagram, you see they put up a nice dress or a nice pair of shoes or a bottle of perfume. Or everybody in the comments is asking how much, please, how much, please, how much, please, because they're not trying to ask what can this thing do. Usually your first set of questions, pricing is there. It shows you how critical pricing is to any business. Now, pricing strategies, on the other hand, are the methods and the procedures that businesses use to determine the rates that they charge for their goods and services. Okay, so price is the amount you charge for the items, your products or your service, while your pricing strategy is how you arrive at that price, how you arrive at the price, how you calculate that price. So pricing strategies are obviously important for competitiveness, for profitability, and also for long-term success. And a pricing strategy encompasses any of these things up on my screen there. One, the state of the market. So a function of the forces of the market forces of demand and supply. Okay, what is available in the market, what is trending in the market, availability of raw materials, etc, etc. Competitors' actions. So what is competition doing? People who are selling similar products, people who are rendering similar services, what are they doing? This informs your pricing strategy. Profit margins, how much do I want to make from this business? How much do I want to make from selling this product or rendering this service? Input costs, these are my raw materials. What are the things that contribute towards my finished product, right, or the service that I render? How much do these things cost me? Okay. Financial capability of the average consumer, the people I am targeting, what is their earning power? What is their earning power? And of course, amount spent on manufacturing and distributing products. And lastly would be your variable costs, which we've discussed. And I'm sure that by now we should all be familiar with our direct costs or our variable costs. So the importance of a pricing strategy, a successful pricing strategy helps a business strengthen its position in the market by earning its clients' confidence and bringing the business closer to achieving its objectives. Pricing strategies, important to notice, aren't necessarily about profit margins. So because there's a way we can think about our pricing strategy. Yes, every business is in operation to make money, okay? But at the end of the day, it's not just about the margins. It's look at the example I have up on screen here. You can decide to keep your price low or to keep the price of a service low so that you can expand your market share, okay, and push out your competition. Essentially, you want to monopolize the system. And a business that does that very strongly over the years in Nigeria is Dangote, right? There's a way he comes into the market, whether it's Indomie, I say Indomie, whether it's noodles, whether it's any of the fast moving consumer goods, right? Whether it's cement, whether it's, it comes in and it monopolizes the market by reason of pricing strategy. And we will look at some of those pricing strategies in a bit. Okay, moving on. So the first strategy is the cost plus pricing. cost plus pricing. I'm going to talk through 5 strategies. There are a number of strategies that are all very similar and all very intertwined, but I'm going to focus on the 5 here. So if you do have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. This pricing method takes the cost of producing your product or service and adds a markup. Now, what we call a markup it's called markup, it's called margin, it's essentially a percentage that you put on top of your cost so that you can make profits. Okay? It considers all your direct and indirect costs. It is best suited for product-based businesses with clear production costs. Not that service-based businesses can't use it, but it's better suited, right, for people who can see they can measure their costs very easily. They are the ones that can enjoy a cost plus pricing. For a service-based industry, for example, like I am rendering, if I'm in the service-based industry, I'm facilitating these sessions, right, at a fee, for example, and sometimes it's subject to value considerations. Some people will say, oh, why is this person so expensive? So it's same thing. Let me use consulting or audit firms. Why is a Boston Consulting Group so expensive? In fact, Boston Consulting Group will not touch certain types of businesses. They will not touch certain types of companies. You have to have an annual turnover in foreign currency in excess of 7 figures before you can say you want to engage a Boston Consulting, because first of all, the pricing that they will give you. So they function for multinationals and government. In fact, for government, it's not all parastatals. It's highest levels of government that they would engage, because they are not cheap. So they've carved out a niche for themselves, right? They are more superior to your KPMG or your PwC. Okay. Now, when you move at the bottom or to the bottom of that ladder, of the consulting ladder, you see the mid-scale businesses here who would deal with your mid-income, medium-scale type businesses, to your large corporates, large corporate organizations who don't have international locations, as it were, right? They don't have, they're not spread through, they're just national, they're not global, right? They can take them on. But again, pricing is different. So for service-based industry, it's a function of how you're able to justify the value you bring to the table. But for products-based businesses, it's easy. Your cost is determined by, or your pricing is determined largely by your costs, your direct and your indirect costs, okay? Informal says, can I repeat what I said before? What is markup? Another word for markup is margin. It is simply the amount, a predetermined amount that the business owner puts on top of the costs to determine their price. Okay, so you can see up on my screen, I have the formula that it's your cost. So if we use Mr. James, for example, right, and we look at his costs, let's look at just his variable costs before we even think about, let's not complicate matters and think about fixed costs, but look at his variable costs. Let's assume that his factors of production and all that, the cost that Mr. James will spend monthly, okay, puts him at 2,000, like we described earlier, to be able to produce one pastry and a pack of food at 4,000. So how did Mr. James determine that he was going to sell at 4,000? These are part of what we're looking at. Now, if Mr. James used a cost plus pricing strategy, what that means is 2,000 plus X equals 4,000. Do you understand? Where markup now is going to be price minus cost equals X, which will be 4,000 minus 2,000 equals 2,000. Now, markups are usually expressed in percentage. So if you take that 2,000 and say, what percentage of the price is this 2,000 that we've identified as markup? Who knows what percentage that is? Let me be sure that people are following me. What percentage is that? Anybody? That's 50% of the price, right? Fantastic. Now, what percentage of the cost is that? Is the markup? Yes, Elizabeth. What percentage? Remember, cost is 2,000. Markup is 2,000. So what percentage of the cost is that? Anyone? Excuse me. Okay, let's move quickly. It's 100%. So it means that my markup here is 100% of my costs. So that is, again, we're assuming we're using Mr. James now as an analogy. It means that Mr. James says, for every 1 naira that I spend, I want to make 100% of it. So for every 1 naira that I spend as cost, I want to make not 50 kobo, I want to make 1 naira. So it's 1 for 1. That's what Mr. James has done here. And so his markup is 100%. And that's what informed his pricing of 4,000 naira. Now, this is just a broad, loose explanation to help us understand the concept of markup. Markup usually is expressed in percentages. Okay. Now, the advantage is a very simple method. It ensures profits. And the question is, how much profit do I want as a business owner? How much profit do I want? Now, the disadvantage is that this cost plus pricing strategy ignores market demand. It does not put the consumer into consideration. It's not thinking about the customer. It's thinking just purely about the business. So yes, the business thinks about the customer and says, oh, I want to produce food that is nourishing, that is cooked in a healthy environment, that would help people fix their, whatever value proposition Mr. James defined, right? Remember your value proposition. Whatever problem he's trying to solve. Maybe he's opening up a fast food restaurant in a place where there isn't any, for example, and he wants people to be able to access cooked meals easily in a very pleasant environment. Now, when it comes to his pricing, however, he's focused purely on his costs, and he's saying, my decision as a business owner is I want to make sure I make 100% of my cost back as my markup or my profits, as it were. And that informs the price that I sell. It also ignores competitor prices because for all you care, the same pastry Mr. James is selling at 1,000 and the same pack of food is selling at 3,000. Maybe further down the street, there's another eatery that is selling it at 500 and at 2,500. Okay? So cost plus pricing ignores competition. And examples, we see these food items, wholesale goods. That is the reason why you will go to the market and in some places, price is the same. But in some other places, different parts of the market, especially for items that you have to use your eyes to weigh it. You go to the market to buy meat. That thing gives me a headache. Because it's easier for me to buy at the supermarket. Let them weigh. There's already a fixed price per kilogram. But you go to the market and then you're dragging with the aboki that is selling the meat. And he's saying to you, madam, this one is 10,000 naira last. This one is 20,000 naira. And you're saying, how did you determine the cost? How did you use your eyes to gauge it? The same means some people are great at negotiation. That's where negotiation comes to play. Some people will negotiate. My late dad, he cost only 20,000 naira for it. That same meat that you buy at 18,000, he can buy it at 2,000 naira. Only God knows how he does it. But the person will end up selling. You can sell angrily, but you will sell. So you can see how cost plus is affecting different things, and how people position their goods. They determine how they sell and the kind of profit margin that they make on it. So let's do a quick test. If it costs 500 naira to make a candle and you want a 25% markup on your cost, what will your selling price be? Quickly, fastest fingers, everyone. Somebody should have told me this answer by now. You shouldn't even be trying to press the calculator. 25%. First of all, what is 50% of 500? Then what is 50% of that 50%? That's your 25%. Or what is a quarter of 500? So what will your selling price be? Oh yeah. Well done, Elizabeth. 625. Okay. So I hope that we understand how cost plus pricing works. This is the easiest form of pricing method or pricing strategy that is used by a lot of people, retailers, A lot of people use because it's the simplest. It's the one that does not give you too much headache. Okay, let's move to the second type, competitive pricing. The practice of setting, well done, Joy. Practice of setting your product or service prices based on what competition is doing in your market rather than on your business costs or your desired profit margins. Remember that your business cost plus your desired profit margin is the first one we described. Now, competitive pricing says, what is competition doing? That's where I'm going to put my price. Maybe I'll make my price 5 naira or 10 naira less than competition. You also see this at play in a lot of retail businesses. Okay, sometimes it can mean just raising your prices, but you also offer better terms of payment as an alternative. So it's not in every situation. Most times it is that people bring their prices below what competition is doing. But sometimes some people maintain, they are aware that competition is charging 1,000 naira for this thing. I will also charge 1,000, but I will add, so let me give an example. I sell wigs. Let's assume everybody is selling wigs or competition. Most times they say, oh, this type of wig that I have on, bone straight, one thing, they're selling that, I don't know, let's use 1,000 naira. Yeah? They're selling at 1,000 naira. Now, I have two options. I can either decide, because under competitive pricing, I can decide that I will sell my own at 998 naira or 995 naira so that more people can come to me, right? Or 950 naira, depending. I can also decide that I will sell at 1,000 naira, but I will give wig cap. I'll add a wig cap to every wig that is bought from me. So some people, because again, we like freebies, most people might want to go and meet, especially if from a quality perspective, there isn't much difference. They can go and buy from the person who's selling at 1,000 naira with a wig cap. But the actual cost to you, right, is it needs to factor in that wig cap that you have sold. Okay, if I can put it that way. So if I put together your total price, if I take the cost of the wig cap and the 1,000 naira competition is selling, that's your total pricing. So it means that you are still slightly below competition effectively, because competition is at 1,000, but you are at, let's assume a wig cap is 50 naira. You are selling at 1,050 naira. Sorry, you are more than competition, I apologize. But you are selling at 1,050 naira. So that way you are above competition. Does that make sense to anyone? Do you understand? Do you need me to go over it again? The two ways that we utilize competitive pricing. You are either below, you are at par, or you are above. Well, three technically. Below, at par, or above. Okay? Thank you, Joy. So there's something called, in pricing, there is something called the floor and the ceiling. So again, floor, the way we know floor, and then the ceiling. So there's a price floor and there is a price ceiling. Now your price floor is the cost that you should not go below, or the price that you should not go below. Otherwise, you would make a loss. So no matter how much you love your customers, no matter how much you are so invested in your business and you want to push your business, once you go below your price floor is largely determined by your costs. You will perpetually be in loss, and such a business will run the risk of going extinct, right? It will not be able to continue as a going concern anymore because it is perpetually in loss. Now, what is called a price ceiling is the amount that you should not go above in doing that business, either based off of what competition is doing, right? The market forces of demand and supply, and a host of other things, like we mentioned under pricing strategy. If you go above it, you will shoot yourself in the foot, or shoot your business in the foot, as it were, and shoot yourself outside of competition, such that you become too pricey. And that way, you will lose customers. You will not even have customers. You won't be able to attract people because you have outpriced yourself above market. So every business must always find that sweet spot where between your price floor and your price ceiling, you are in that comfortable place where you are not overcharging and you are not undercharging. I hope that helps someone here. All right. So let's move to the third type, value-based pricing. Now, value-based pricing is a pricing strategy based on how customers ascribe value to your product or your service. It is not you, it's not your own definition of value now, maybe value proposition. No, it is the value that your customer sees and they are willing to put money towards purchasing that product or purchasing that service. So remember I said that money always flows in the direction of value, which means your customers determine that based on our perceived worth of this product or service, we will place X amount on this. Sometimes some people find this out by reason of research or by reason of product launch, right? They launch the products and they see how well it's been engaged. They see how much people are willing to pay for it. They do a test. Maybe sometimes they start out with a low pricing, then they start to increase and they see, are people buying? Are we still retaining the number of customers that we were when we were buying it at, when we were pricing at X amount? Now we have increased by 10%, by 5%, by 20%. Are people still buying? If we are not losing customers, right, it means that customers see value in it. Is the reason why they keep purchasing it. So customers don't care how much it costs a business to manufacture a product. What matters to them is that they believe that they are getting a good deal when they buy it. And let me show you an example. Apple, their strategy from the onset revolves around the customer. They built a brand that became more important than even the product itself. So everybody knows Apple. Even little children know the product called Apple, whether it is from an iPhone, to a MacBook, to an iMac, to an iPod, to an iPad, For them, they've invested in building a brand name, right? Now, understand that when they started out, their pricing mirrored the simplicity of their products and the ease with which customers could use them. So they started, their operating system was very user-friendly, people enjoyed a lot and derived a lot of value. I have friends who, for the longest time, at least since Apple started, the only brand of phones that they have used has been an iPhone. And for them, it is the ease of being able to access memories that they've created, right? Because when you use an Apple product, you have access to iCloud. Of course, this was before all of the other forms of cloud storages started coming up or that we became familiar with them. The one that a lot of us became familiar with first was iOS, Apple's operating system, and of course, their cloud storage. And the fact that they could get pictures from, as far back as whenever, they could still have those data, they could have information readily accessible to them simply because they were using certain types of products. I think Samsung has played catch up now and perhaps maybe even overtaking them. So you hear things like people would rather do a Samsung device or a Samsung phone over an iPhone because of things like picture quality and all that. So value that customers are ascribing to products determines the price. And some of these things, as I'm saying every year, that I say to people, trying to keep up, because every year they are releasing one S something, one Samsung S something, they are releasing one iPhone 16, iPhone 13. Do you understand? It just keeps going. Every year something is changing, they make minor adjustments, and people rush and buy these products. It's because they have built brand loyalty, they built customer loyalty, they have a devoted customer base or consumer base. So the question to ask yourself now, as an aspiring entrepreneur or as an existing business owner, a budding entrepreneur, if value-based pricing is what you are posturing for, right, over time, know that it's not something that you start from day one. There are things that you have to literally start to build an army around. Things that you're known for, something you're known for, something that your business is known for. Can we give examples of local businesses that are known for specific things that people, what they are known for even almost outshines the products that they sell or the services that they render? Some of them are, an example can be some of these retail supermarkets, retail stores, the retail chain stores, right, that are known for low pricing. You can be rest assured that if you go everywhere, if you come to them, you will get that same product cheaper than if you had bought at any of the other supermarkets, right? ShopRite was one, yes, ShopRite was one that was posturing to be that way, but I don't even know if they're still that way. When they first came, that was how they postured. It was almost as if you could get things way cheaper than you would get in any other supermarket. Indomie. Now, Indomie as in noodles or Indomie as the company, you know that noodles is the product, the brand name produced by, what's that company now? Their name has escaped me. But this manufacturing company that produces Indomie, I've forgotten their name. Yeah, Coke by Coca-Cola, exactly. That's a good one too. Coca-Cola is a good one. Dufil, yes, Dufil. Yeah, so we get the picture, right? Coca-Cola has existed for so many years, and still people gather around it. It's a brand name. It has come to, regardless of whatever price it is, it has stuck with people. Okay? And same thing with Indomie, to your point. So much so that they call noodles Indomie. Regardless of the brand, it is Indomie. Meanwhile, Indomie is the brand of a specific type of noodles. Okay, so we can see the example there with Apple. Let's move to the fourth pricing strategy, or the fifth now. How many have we discussed? Competitive cost plus. Okay. Yes, the fourth. Number 4, location pricing. Location pricing is also known as geographical or zone pricing, right? And it is a strategy where businesses adjust prices for the same product or service based on the customer's location. This one is also another one that is very common, especially with micro, small businesses, right? Micro, small businesses. Now, for big companies, it doesn't pay them to price their products in different places at different amounts, right? Even though I'm trying to remember some products that operate this way, but based off of price sensitivity, essentially, you will see that a price of a cup here on the island, this same cup, right, will be more expensive than if you were buying it from Lagos Island or mainland. So I hear people say things like, let me give you an example now. This one happened to me recently. In fact, this week, I think, oh no, it was 2 weeks ago. I was in traffic and I was trying to buy a bottle of groundnuts, right? And the person comes to me and says 3,000 naira. Meanwhile, sold to the person in front of me, the car in front of me, at 2,500, right? And then comes to me and says they want to sell at 3,000 inside the same traffic. There was nothing separating, just the car in front of me paid 2,500. Can anybody guess why, even in the on the same road, that happened? Can anybody take a wild guess? Very quickly, wild guess. Thank you. Type of car. God bless you, Joy. Type of car was simply the reason that the person decided that this one is a big madam, big car. You can afford it. So think about location pricing loosely like that, right? Depending on where you are, some products will be sold at a certain price, depending on who you are selling to as well. It might not even be physical or geographical now. It can be a function of who you are also selling to. You're selling to some people will price higher. You're selling to other types of people, especially where your goods are applicable across board, okay? And of course, for location pricing, things like shipping costs, taxes, local market conditions, and price sensitivity of consumers in different regions impact this pricing strategy. Like I said earlier, this is also a strategy that a number of people leverage. So they're selling to the high and mighty. You don't also want to look or appear that your product is too cheap. So you try and match them where they are. You're selling to people at the grassroots level. You scale down to meet them where they are. Okay? Factors influencing location-based pricing, shipping costs, the expense of transporting goods to different locations. This is also another valid point. So your goods become more expensive if you're coming from one particular point to another point to sell, right? When you factor in transportation, it increases. Local competition, the level of competition in a specific region can influence your pricing strategy. Taxes and tariffs, yeah, this also impacts some people, especially who sell in specific regions, or taxes that are applicable to certain types of products. So for example, furniture, I think furniture is on the list of banned items. So what that means is people who import furniture into the country have to pay significantly more. Why? Because it's on the list of banned items and they pass that cost to the consumer. So you want furniture from Italy, you'll be paid through your nose because the person selling will factor in not just shipping costs, not just the cost of purchase, but also the cost that they've used to settle the people that allowed them to bring it in. Yeah. So customer willingness to pay, factors like income levels, price sensitivity, and the likes also determine location-based pricing, like I explained in the analogy I used about the groundnut. And of course, currency exchange rates. If you're dealing with international markets, currency fluctuation will impact your pricing. So you find that the cost of selling something here, right, would significantly be different from the cost of exporting it elsewhere to sell. Same thing too if you're depending on raw materials, imported raw materials, right? The cost of importing the raw materials, you need to factor it in. And you know, Nigeria, we're largely a consumer economy. So that means a number of our raw materials that we import ultimately impact on the final selling price that people sell at here. Because by the time you include all your other manufacturing costs, sometimes the costs are very high. That's why sometimes you notice that things like buy Niger ends up being more expensive than some of the things that people have even brought in from the likes of China and all. They brought in bulk, right? Because some of the inputs, they need to bring them in to even produce the buy Niger at the end of the day. Okay, so last pricing strategy number 5. And I want to encourage you, you can go online and just look up other sources of other types of pricing strategies. Okay. All right. Noted. Thank you. Well, this is our very last point and the last slide for today. Penetration pricing involves setting a low initial price to attract a large number of customers and to gain market share. Remember, I also described this in one of the other pricing strategies, that sometimes a business can come in and the plan is, let me start low and then I start to increase my price as I see how my customers and my consumers are engaging with my products or my service. Once the product or service gains traction, then they can consider a price increase. An example is a new streaming service might offer a low introductory price to encourage users to sign up. In fact, sometimes they tell you come and sign up for free. How many of you have seen those types of packages? They'll tell you first 90 days for free or first 6 months for free. Then after a while, you start to be billed a certain amount. What they're doing is lure you in to get you to use the product, engage the service, and then you're stuck because you are now enjoying it. And so when it's time to pay, you might as well just go ahead and subscribe to the service. Okay. All right. So let me take questions quickly in the brevity of time that we have. Elizabeth says 200 naira table water sold in stores compared to the price of the same products in some premium goods. Exactly. So location again, fantastic. That's a beautiful example for location-based pricing, even with drinks too. Ifama says, Ma, this kind of pricing strategy, how can you do it not to backfire. Sometimes when the price increases, consumers may run to other cheaper vendors. So again, before you can determine on your which pricing strategy you would use, and also know that you are not compelled to stick to just one pricing strategy. Depending on where your business is at, you can try out different pricing strategies. So you have things like location-based pricing that even businesses that started out using a cost-plus based or even a penetration-based can also do a location-based pricing at some point. Sometimes you go for pop-ups. They do things like fairs, and at the fair, right, perhaps you are the only person selling that type of product there. It's called taking advantage of the market. So you can decide that you want to, increase your normal sales price by 25% or by 20%. Why? Because you are the only person selling at that fair, or you are the only person selling at that, function, right? So, but for this penetration pricing, you need to also be mindful. If you are selling physical goods in a particular location, if everybody around you is selling at a particular price, if you start out low, know that you can only get to where everybody is at with your penetration pricing strategy. You can't go above where they are, because then you will suffer this risk that you have identified here. I hope that helps, Ifoma. All right, any other questions? Thank you for the feedback, Ifoma. Any other question? In the absence of any, thank you for your time today. Please go back and, look through and apply the pricing strategies to your business, recognizing that where you are matters, what you're selling matters, how well you've already even started to penetrate the market also matters. So it's a combination of different factors, okay? All right, so I will hand over back to our moderator. Thank you all for your time. Have a blessed week and weekend.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for that amazing section. I mean, up until now, I never knew there was something like pricing strategy. I probably just thought you just buy a product and just whatever amount comes to your head, you just run with it. This was really insightful and engaging. Thank you so much. I hope everybody learned something amazing from today's class. So next weekend will be our last class for entrepreneurship and financial literacy. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be engaging. It's going to be very educative. Also, remind your friends that have been following the program from the inception that the last class for this particular course is going to be next weekend, and they don't want to miss it. Please do follow Adara Foundation on all social media platforms, and also if there are any other information to be communicated in the WhatsApp platform. Thank you so much for joining. Do have a good evening. Good night.